Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hello, my friends. Recently, somebody wrote to me there where he lives. It's very difficult to keep a spiritual routine just because of the energy. Well, what he says is true, but not only for that place, but around the world there is something loose that really tries to make it difficult. And I wrote to him, well, the antidote is to do it in spite of that. That we don't let ourselves be pulled by that inertia, by that pressure that is there. That's why many people, anyhow, all the time used to have difficulties to keep up a practice. Then one day one feels, oh, I don't feel like doing that anything today. And then the next day it comes again, that feeling, and it's already more difficult not to give way to that. Okay, I'll do it another time. And this kind of feelings may come even more now. A feeling of listlessness, a feeling of, oh, why should I? Why should I? Like, what's the point? And this is exactly what that pressure is doing. There is a pressure affecting people. There is a pull to, to let oneself go into something rather negative, to listlessness, to, oh, I have no energy, I'm tired. And eventually getting into depression and getting worse. But we can counteract it. We can all the time be aware, okay, there are influences that make it difficult. There are influences that want to prevent us from being conscious, from being really alive. And we can just profoundly decide, no, I'm not giving way to that. And then every time we remember, every time it comes to our mind, oh, I'm tired, oh, I can't. Then we can tell ourselves, yes, I can. I can connect right here now, wherever I am, and relax in that, and draw energy from that, and draw inspiration from that, and let that joyousness that is there underneath all those layers that want to prevent that we are aware of it, it's still there. We can connect with that, let that come to the surface and express it in our daily life. We can express it in our actions and simply also in our mental state. However much there is a pull and an influence that wants to say, hey, I'm not in a mood, I can't. We can counteract it. And it's helpful, especially in these times, if we keep up a daily practice. If we keep up some time every day where we just withdraw from all activities and simply in one way or another are. I am here now. Whether it is by holding on to that I amness, or whether it is by being aware of the breath, or whether it is by feeling the presence of God, doing mantra, doing Rupa Dhyanam, or just opening the heart. It is possible to do so also now. And if we do that daily for some time, it makes it easier. Also in the time when we are not sitting, when that feeling wants to come, oh, I'm so tired, I can't, that blues, when that comes, not to give way to that. Okay, it's a feeling, we can see it, but then we can come back to the source which is prior to that and which is ever fresh and new and bubbling and full of life and consciousness. Nothing can affect it. However strong the influences are against it, it cannot be affected, the essence of it. Even if there are forces who try to affect it, who can do all kinds of damage, but the essence as it is cannot be affected by any of this. And we have the possibility to connect consciously with that every moment. Sometimes we may not be successful, but the very fact that we are consciously turning the attention in that direction changes already the situation where we are in. It's worth the trouble. It's worth to make that little effort again and again. It's not a tremendous effort we have to make, not like breaking through a wall. It's just that little push we have to give ourselves again and again. Hey, don't go along with those influences that are against that. Simply bring the attention back home to that which makes the experience possible. We can remind ourselves again and again and again during our daily life, and the whole life experience will be different. Then the consciousness becomes expansive, as it is meant to be. Then we feel not locked in that little story, in that little personality, in all those terrible things that are happening and that I have to do. Then we are aware, oh, there is something ever fresh and beautiful we can access no matter what is happening. So, as I wrote to my friend, the antidote to that influence that wants to prevent us from connecting with truth is to simply do it in spite of that. We have come for this, into this world, to face challenges, to learn in course of the process, to learn to grow, to outgrow things that try to prevent us from being in harmony with truth. And when it's easy, then we may do it easier. But then the tendency is also one forgets about this and tries to just have a good time. Nothing wrong having a good time. Simply don't forget to connect. And when it's more difficult, the tendency is to get morose and think, oh, it's all senseless. But there, actually, we have a great opportunity. When all these influences are there that try to prevent us to connect, and we are connecting in spite of that. That brings so much. It's worth the trouble. Actually, we are living in very turbulent times with all those influences that try to prevent us, but at the same time, there is also, when we do so, immediately there comes such a support. It's an opportunity. Let's not waste our time being totally absorbed and worried with our personal stories. Okay, they have their problems. The stories are often problematic, but there is always the possibility to come back to that silent center, no matter what is happening, and then everything looks different. And everything becomes relative. Okay, it's a story, sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, sometimes conducive, sometimes it seems to want to prevent us from being natural and in harmony, but there we can just profoundly decide, no, I'm not going to give way to that. No matter what is going to happen, I'm not going to give way to that. Here, be now, and relax in that. We don't have to keep up a tremendous effort all the time. Just that little push. Come back home and relax. Come back home and relax. Connect and relax. Be and relax. Sometimes now people think, oh, I did so much practice for a long time, it was getting easier and easier, and recently I have difficulties. Don't get disheartened. It's not that you did something wrong. It's not because somehow you failed. It's just right now made more difficult. But if in spite of that we go ahead with it, in spite of that we make that little effort to connect again and again, then we get so much strength from that. So let's not resist the fact when it's not so easy, but accept, okay, it's not so easy, but that shall not prevent me from connecting, that shall not prevent me from being my natural self. I can turn in this direction all the time, no matter what is happening. Hariyo, Hariyo, Hariyo. Okay, my friends, then I'm asking you, is there anybody who would like to come in and say something? You're welcome to do so. Nobody wants to talk?
Hi, Werner.
Hello, Floyd.
Yes, how are you?
Okay, okay. Are you still in Goa?
Yeah, I'm still in Goa,
Hmm.
but I'll be coming soon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about this aspect of desires and sexuality,
Mhm.
because it seems like the world is, in a way, the idea that sex sells, that is very, I don't know, in Thiru, but in other places, in cities, it is very vivid, like you will sell anything. Even to sell a toothpaste, you need some kind of sexual image. You need to, sort of an Instagram and all this, like the modern things.
Yeah.
It is all focused on sexuality. So is this a normal, as a human, as an animal, is sexual, is it normal, or is it something that was blocked earlier by the earlier religions and things like that, or by the patriarchal structure? But now it is out in the open, like, okay, fine, like, now there's no compulsion for you to produce kids or do something. So you can just enjoy, you have enough material wealth and material comforts. Maybe not everywhere in the world, but at least where we live, there are a decent amount of material comfort and ability to fulfill the desires. So, and the religion somehow, I think they over controlled this thing about sexuality, fulfilling desires. But in India, the ancient temples had, in Khajuraho and all that, I've seen, they depict sexuality, they depict people fulfilling their desires, which they called as bhog. uh, So is this natural, and how does a seeker integrate this in their life? Because in the world, you're always going to meet people who are very material driven, sexuality driven,
Hmm.
and so that kind of thing. So how is it, first of all, is it natural what is happening in the world? And secondly, uh, how does the seeker integrate it, or the
Yeah.
spiritual people, aspirants?
Well, when you ask me whether the sexual desire is natural, yes, of course, the sexual desire is natural. When you ask me what is happening in the world, whether that is natural, no, it's not natural. It's like it has to do with what I have been talking before, that there are all these forces, all these influences that try to prevent us from connecting with the essence. And what is now happening is that sexuality is pushed, but not in a natural way, in a screwed up way. That I mean, what I don't know in India, but I'm hearing in the West what they are doing to children in the schools already. That they are being pushed direction. Sexuality, it's not natural. It's really a manifestation of those forces that want to prevent us from becoming subtler, to go deeper. But sexuality as such is not unnatural, of course not. That's how the species has survived. That's how you can see it in the animals. It's natural that it's there. We just have to learn to integrate it in such a way that it is natural, not to make such a monster out of it as it has become. That people are being pushed all the time to somehow be pulled into that, and then actually it's it's just uh, agitating. It's not bringing people really much satisfaction. That whole thing that is there. It's You mentioned Khajuraho, and that there was that tantric aspect of Hinduism at a certain time very popular, but actually it's not that they were just indulging in sex. They tried to include sex in such a way that it can become a means to become more self-conscious and not just uh, to have a moment, a good time, and forget about everything else. So, as it is going on right now, that influence is there, that the sexuality becomes gross, not subtle, that the whole attention is pulled away from the essence. And then there are all these not so pleasant manifestations of it. But you can very well accept, okay, you don't want to have a vow of celibacy, but then when you feel that is a sexual desire, you can learn to be also connected, to not just let that energy drive your mind nuts, but then accept, okay, that desire is there, and you see what it is doing in your body, you see what it is doing energetically, and relax. And if you go for the act, if you go for the fulfillment, you can still keep that awareness of being, and then it's not an obstacle. It becomes an obstacle when we completely lose it, when we completely forget about being aware of the source. And for, I mean, you said religions, they have rather suppressed it and said it's something bad. It's not something bad. It's the strongest force in the body. But we have to learn to integrate, and that has become a bit difficult because the whole way as it is being handled around the world is very disharmonious. That's why it creates so many problems. If that was more natural, how it is being handled, there wouldn't be all these sexual problems that are there. But sometimes seekers, they try to be celibates, but they didn't have the means, they didn't have the knowledge how to deal with that energy. And then they simply try to cut it off. And then, of course, it has the tendency to build up and create more trouble. At the end, they sometimes couldn't think of anything else but sex because they didn't have sex, and they would better have had moderate sexual life and then be more relaxed to really go deeper in themselves. Now, there are yogis who really completely forbid it. And the yogi has then to learn to redirect this energy. If it's not being redirected and you simply stop it, then it will invariably create more problems. And this is not such an easy thing to do. But the yogi who is managing, who achieves that it's energy instead of flowing down in the body and creating restlessness, starts at the bottom of the spine and flows up to the top of the head and then distributes in the body and is connected to a sense of peace. The yogi who has learned to turn the sexual drive around in that way will definitely have an advantage because that's a source of energy that is always available. But that doesn't mean those who don't do that, they don't have a chance to become more self-aware. Just learn not to be driven by sexuality or any other desire. Learn to become aware that no matter what you are doing, after all, when there is a desire, then it's always that desire for, if I do this, then I'm happy. If I do that, then I'm happy. It's the desire for happiness. And if we really observe, then we become more aware the happiness is not coming from outside. It's not coming from a particular act. It's coming out of ourselves. When we fulfill a desire, then at the time we let go, we relax. We don't think, oh, it should be different. We don't torture ourselves for a moment. There is that relaxation, and in that relaxation, that inner joyousness has a chance to come to the surface and manifest. And then one feels happy. And after that, we attribute that happiness to whatever has happened and try to reproduce it and hope to get it from there. And as long as that idea is there, we are always restless, feeding that restlessness, and eventually, most of the time, disappointed. Become aware that you are the source of your happiness. That sense of fulfillment comes out of yourself. And the more you are aware of that, the easier it is to deal with any desire that springs up, including the sexual desire.
Yeah. But is it like when you look at the world, I don't know if you consider it as Kali Yuga or something like that.
Hmm.
But is there an attempt to sort of commoditize everything? Because what I heard yesterday was, I look at everything, I don't say that because I'm spiritual, I should not uh, look at things. So I look at everything, and then I also on the internet I find places where you can read about what's actually going on today in the world.
Mhm.
So they said that earlier there were fashion models would be paid to be models and to sort of display the dresses and things like that. But now some of the models, they will dress anything or they will dress nothing,
Yeah.
and they will come on the ramp, but for free. And the
Mhm.
whole idea is to have a promotion so that they can sell sex or sell, online sexual things.
Mhm.
So there seems to be an attempt where they want to make it a commodity. If you want sex, you pay, you have it, you leave.
Mhm.
There's no need to have a relationship. And it is the same with everything, even teaching or anything in life is sort of put in this capitalistic framework. So is it something to do with the yuga, with the time we are living in, or it is just a temporary phase, or is it just that we are perceiving in that way, but it is always terrible because they say even Rama was in Satyuga, but even his wife was taken away, and a
Yeah.
lot of things happened.
Mm.
So how do you see that?
Well, you can call it Kali Yuga, but or whatever. It's sure that right now it's very intensely pushed. There is that influence very intensely there that pushes people to try to disconnect from that sense of simply being. That there are forces they like that. There are forces they get a kick out of that, of all the emotional stuff that comes along with it in people. They feeding on that, so they push that.
Mm,
But at the same time, there is also the counter energy, and we have always the possibility to to rather open up to the to one side or the other side.
mm.
But right, you said everything is a commodity, man. Now you can you can buy everything, even enlightenment.
And also the very young generation, I think mostly they are all socializing. Everything happens through the phone. Even in India now, it is through the phone. Everything is through the phone.
Yeah.
So you will text, you will be on some online group, and then there is no social contact with humans.
Mm.
So again, is it is it like some people say, there is an Illuminati or there is someone who's planning all this?
Mm.
But is it like an attempt, or is it just that the universe wants people to go through these things and then it uses some powerful people to make these kind of things happen? Or is it something like uh, is it something uh, which is like a conspiracy? Is it like a conspiracy, or is it like something which naturally has to happen so that people can learn?
Mm. The two are not exclusive. that, somehow it's not for nothing that humanity has to go through this, what we are going through now. And once we have crossed all this, then humanity and the potential in the humans will be even stronger. And there is a possibility of then building up a more harmonious and peaceful world. But this is not an excuse for those forces who try to push it.
Mm.
I'm not going to go into all the conspiracy things, but even those people who somehow manipulate, and I'm sure there are manipulating people trying to push the whole story this way, that way, and have their fingers in much more than what people are aware of. But they also are instruments of more subtle but dark forces. And then when they open up to that, they have the tendency to turn so totally away from love, turn so totally away from being natural, from being in touch with the essence, that they think it's right, that they have the full right to do, but actually they just have become instruments of forces that get a kick out of all the pain, all the suffering, all the negativity that comes out of it. And right now, there is a opposite force, a lightful force, a harmonious force that is getting stronger and stronger. And it's like that not lightful force that has been actually in control for a long time and influencing, but it, they are aware that they have to go, and they hanging on with their fingernails and try their best to make it worse and worse and gain total control that they cannot be sent away. Eventually, that whole thing will collapse, and something more peaceful, harmonious, and beautiful can grow out of it. And for us, living in the midst of all that, it's an intensive time, and it's good to be clear, not to blindly just get pulled along in all the direction that it pulls, but be aware what matters most, especially now. It's always like this, but especially now, what matters most is that we don't lose that conscious contact with that aspect in us that cannot be influenced by all that. And there we are taking control and responsibility over our own life. And actually, at the same time, we are doing the best that we can for the rest of the world, because everybody who is doing that is supporting that force that is helping the harmony, the peace, the beauty, and the possibility of living here in a human form peacefully, joyously, without hurting each other, and supporting each other in that expansion of consciousness.
So, what is the difference between morality and what is natural? Because see, in nature also there will be some kind of villains and bad animals who attack the other animals.
Mhm.
So do we accept these dark forces as like if I'm a deer, for me the lion is not so good, is a bad animal. I don't know if the deer thinks the lion is a bad animal, but I think it will be scared of it.
Yes.
So, do we see this as coexisting forces which will always be there? But how to differentiate? Because see, even a religion will say that you should be kind to others, you should be kind to animals.
Mhm.
And also, a natural person will be naturally kind, will be in harmony with animals, with
Mm.
other birds, people, everything. So, how does that distinction come between morality, which is imposed, and what is natural?
Mm. Basically, those directions they were just coming from a natural impulse, but then the tradition turned them into morality. You should not do this, you should not do that, otherwise you're getting punished. And I think some of basically it was necessary for most of the people to have a little bit guidelines like this, but the more you become natural, the less you need any rules to live by. Because if you are at peace with yourself, if you are in harmony with yourself, you, you simply will not go out and hurt living beings unnecessarily. It's not natural. It's as unnatural as if I would hit my own eye. Why should I do so? It's stupid. There can be an accident. I can scratch my eye, but not on purpose, simply to create pain. And as we are all connected, if you are going out and hurting others, if you are going out and exploiting others for my own personal petty little satisfaction, then actually we are hurting ourselves. Something in us is getting hurt, is creating more that sense of I and the other, we are separate. And the more that sense is created, the more that consciousness is compressed in a little bubble, and this is always creating suffering. Consciousness naturally wants to expand, and naturally we are connected with everything. But everything that we call evil is contracting consciousness, is making that wall stronger, that feeling, me, separate from the whole rest of existence, and is causing suffering. It has actually, at the base of it, it has nothing to do with morality. It simply has to do with learning to deal with our consciousness, with our life force in a harmonious way in order to expand in consciousness, to expand in strength, to expand in happiness. It's unnatural to be evil. It's unnatural to go out and hurt people senselessly just for the kick of it, or to in order to get some personal benefit out of it, because deep down in ourselves something is hurt when we do that. And if we are at peace, if you to be kind with people is not really originally a moral rule, because we should be good guys and then maybe we go to heaven. It's simply every time when we unnecessarily send out destructive emotions, when we behave in a destructive way, something in ourselves is deeply hurt.
Yeah, but what I feel is we support violence. You know, the world supports violence, not we, but the world system. Because if someone does something wrong, let's say even steals a little bit of money or something, you put him in jail,
Yeah.
and you would do more nasty things to him than, but at least in India, what I've heard and what I've seen in movies and what I've heard from people is that the jails are quite bad.
Yes.
You know, so the whole idea is that if you do wrong, you will be punished, you know,
Yeah.
in the world also. You will be punished, you will be put through some kind of torture, and that might be worse than what you actually did. In some cases, it may not be worse if, let's say, someone has murdered someone, but in any case, it is, something which is very violent and very strong.
Mm.
So, uh, do you see that, in the story, these are all things in the story of the world. Do you see that changing, that we will probably find a way to, even in school, we have a reward and punishment system.
Yeah.
Because if you go to school, if you work hard, yes, you will be rewarded. If you don't, you will be punished.
Yes. Right.
And when we were younger, it was even physical punishment. Now it is banned in India. They
Yeah.
don't allow physical punishment. But so that is also similar to jail, where you
Yes.
put someone 8, 9 hours in the school, sitting in one place,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
you know, working in a certain way. So all these systems are control based. So do you see this, sort of shifting at some point where, let's say, you are in Tiruvannamala, your kids will come with you to Ramana Ashram, and then they will play with other kids, and there will be none of this pressure, because I've seen some travelers doing it, like they don't send their kids to school at all, but the whole wide world would think that they are sort of losers in some way.
Mm. Well,
So do you
you're
see
right.
that change?
The whole society is built up like this about reward and punishment. And this is not the only form a society can take. Also, in this world, there were times when the society was not formed like this. When instead of punishing, it was more like educating people in such a way to prevent negativity to manifest all the time. And then all these jails would not even be necessary. And if there are still some who, in spite of that, go over the line, they would rather be treated medically and helped to sort of sort things out with themselves that are unnatural. So it's not the only way a society can be. Now, this world, you are right, there is a certain amount of violence that is in the structure of this world. Like the plants, they are sucking things out of the earth, the animals are eating the plants, and we are eating the vegetables and the plants, and we are eating the animals are eating each other. It's just that you survive, in a way, we are always killing living beings. Even a rice plant is also a living being. But if there is not evil intention there, this is can be in a harmonious way, and it doesn't really hurt your being. It doesn't. Then okay, it's the way that how it happens on this level. That somehow or other a certain a little amount of violence is unavoidable, but we don't have to fill our mind with that and then become totally destructive, like it is so easily happening right now. Everybody comes in this world and goes out of it. So if a tiger is eating a deer, that deer has come, has lived a life, and then goes out of it like this. The tiger eventually also will go. We all go, but that doesn't mean during the lifetime unnecessarily we have to hurt each other. The tiger is not going out and biting all the deers. He's just doing that when he's hungry to survive. It's not for the tiger, this is natural, and it's not an evil intention there. Maybe many people may also be influenced. Actually, that is true. The animals are also influenced by the violent energies that are being let loose on this world. But if we clean up the atmosphere, the animals are basically peaceful. And then this is happening in a harmonious way, how the nature is functioning. But as human, we don't have to go round and kill unnecessarily. We don't have to go round and be violent. And then, of course, there is also no need of this kind of punishing system, as you said. In the jails, there is a lot of violence. These people, they have committed crimes, they have done something that is hurting themselves, and then wounded like that, they are prone to indulge in more violence. And this, the way the system is functioning, that is rather supporting that. But it need not be like this. The system can also be formed much more in a education that helps the people to be integrated, to integrate their spiritual side instead of completely forget it and just being educated in a way to make the most profit out of the situation all the time. But if you educate people from early youth to become an integrated living beings, then crime disappears. But we're living now in the present time, and there is a lot of violence, and each one we can at least reduce it to a minimum. We don't have to react to violence with violence, but sometimes it may be justified that we also give a little push and say, no, not like this. And that doesn't mean we have to let anybody walk down on us and push us around as they like. But if basically there is a intent of harmony, if basically we are opening our heart and there is love flowing through people, then it's often possible also violent situations to so resolve them without resorting to counter violence.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank
It's
you,
a,
man.
it's
Thank you.
always coming back to ourselves. What we can do in a world like this is make peace with ourselves, create harmony here, and radiate it as good as you can.
Yeah, yesterday there was one picture, one meme was sent to me that a sheikh in Dubai or somewhere, he married 53 women, 43 women in 50 till the age of 53. And he said that I was not looking for pleasure, I was looking for peace and stability. So I sent it to a friend who is a Ramana devotee in England. So he said, "Oh, you should have reminded him that Ramana said the stability is only found in the self."
Yes. I guess he's rather creating problems than stability doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But last thing I want to ask, this is not my question, but I had met a friend on Sunday. Uh, he's around 60 now. So
16.
he's fairly six
1 6 or
zero
60.
60
Yeah.
60.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's around 60. So he tried spirituality for some time. I don't know if this is, I don't know whether it's his laziness or what it is, but he said he tried, he went to Osho, he did many things. And then he said, okay, fine, like I felt that there's a lot of doing and I've understood most of the things and whatever I went through, different things, Osho and different spiritual schools and motivational teaching, all that. And then he said, maybe I realized this is not my cup of tea.
Mhm.
And I've completed my family duties. And I've completed my family duties. So now I have a sort of void, where I can either pursue my desires or I can pursue something that means something for the world, like doing service and all that.
Mhm.
So how does one find a balance, or how does one find that path? What is to be done?
I mean, if somebody has the desire to do this and do that, then they have to do it and reap the sweet and the bitter fruits of it. But if people start to be more natural, then automatically that quest comes for truth. What what is all this about? What is the point of all this? What's the purpose of it? And if we start to have a good look at ourselves, we start to become aware, actually most of the pain in my life I have created myself, and I can learn not to do so, even if they don't have like the classical spiritual stories in their head. If we are attentive, if we are open and just awake and see what's going on, then you automatically turn spiritual. But now he has gone to these places and done these practices without actually really imbibing it in such a way that this is that he became aware it has nothing to do with following a school and following a certain particular practice, but it has to do with myself, with my life, with my experience from moment to moment. And if one has a good look at that and starts to see where that sense of fulfillment comes from, then it's simply natural that you want to dive deeper into that in your own resources. But if the desires to do something else are too strong, then I guess, they have to manifest themselves, they have to be fulfilled. But as you say, your friend is rather a bit at a loss and feels a bit empty and does not quite know what to do. So it would be good for him in this situation not to make big decisions, but to simply observe himself as good as he can.
Yeah, I think observation, I don't know if you'll agree, but observation needs some amount of, energy or drive. But I think he's mostly he'll be sleeping, till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And of course, there are some things he has to do in his work and business, but that is not all the time. So, a sort of, I think, passivity comes,
Mm,
and the passivity, he says that it is because I don't want to get into more trouble. So
mm,
I just stay away from things. But if I go towards my desires, and if I take up even some new responsibilities like
mm,
serving the world in some way, then there will be, some kind of, he wants to do it, but then he was sort of asking me about it.
mhm,
So I told him that, I told him that maybe desires can be fulfilled to whatever extent is possible, make an arrangement, but not to get too obsessed with that.
yeah, right.
Desire can be fulfilled, but without obsession about it. And then, yeah, then I told him that I'll be in Thiru, so maybe visit me in Thiruvannamalai and
I
see,
see.
if you get some inspiration. I said maybe come just for 1, 2 days, but he said he'll come for a week. So
Mm, yeah, yeah,
hopefully, yeah.
right. And only he himself can work himself out of that inertia that he is experiencing. You can inspire, you can uh, talk with him, you can sometimes energetically support, but then each one has to make the steps by themselves. You cannot do
Yeah,
that for anybody else.
of course. Yes.
Shall we leave it
Okay.
at that?
Yes. Thank you, man. Thank you. Hope to see you soon in the live offline satsang.
Okay, you're welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Yeah, I'll be staying longer in Tiruvannamalai in
Okay,
the days to come.
good.
Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to finish everything here. Not finish, but sort of complete some things. and then stay for a longer time.
That sounds good. Hariom.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to come in? You're welcome. One aspect of what we have been talking right now with Floyd, let me get a bit more into that. Desires. Naturally, desires are springing up as long as we are manifesting in a physical body. The simple desire for food will come when we are hungry, just to survive. Sometimes people say, but we have heard, we have read, we have to get rid of all the desires if we want to find peace. If you get rid of all the desires completely, then you are dead. As long as you are alive as a human, these little desires come, but they are not a problem. They come, we fulfill them, they go, and the whole story doesn't leave a trace. But let's stay with the food. If sooner or later one becomes hungry because the body needs some energy to survive. And if we do that in a harmonious way, then this is not a problem for trouble. But of course, if one gets then obsessed with that desire and forgets that actually to eat is just to give the body the necessary energy to live healthy. But then that enjoyment of eating becomes so attractive that one gets obsessed and hopes to get the more can eat extraordinary things, the more but one can indulge in doing that, the happier one becomes. And of course, it doesn't work like that. As long as we are seeking fulfillment and happiness in the object somewhere else than from our own source, then we always are going to get disappointed. That happiness that we are experiencing comes out of our own selves. And this is not simply true for spiritual seekers, for spiritual masters. It is true for everybody. You are the source of your happiness. You are the source of your sense of fulfillment. It comes out of your own source and not from anywhere else. It's just when we have that mind structure in place and we are so convinced, I need this and this and this and this to be happy, then the tendency is there to struggle to get that, to get more of that, to get even more of that. And if it doesn't work, then one feels miserable. And if it works, one feels happy for some time. I've mentioned that before, and I will tell it again because it's happening all the time. When somebody has a desires and struggles and is restless and then fulfills the desire, of course, one feels happy. Why? Because at that moment one lets go. Desire fulfilled, and there is a relaxation there. There is not that struggle, I want that, I want that. For sometimes we are not torturing ourselves. This is wrong and that is wrong. For sometimes one just lets go. And in that letting go, the attention, without having the idea, the concept of it, The attention is sinking deeper in our own resources, and the deeper it goes, the more we are touching that joy of existence. So all the happiness people are experiencing in the world, attributing them to so many things, it comes out of themselves. If the circumstances are according to my ideas how they should be, then I'm ready to relax. But it's usually not staying. Then things are changing all the time, and again they are gone. Again, the circumstances are the way I don't like them. And if I resist against that fact and think that my happiness is dependent on the circumstances, that they are the way I want them to be, and that makes me happy. If we are dependent on that, then we are going to be disappointed all the time, again and again and again. Momentarily, it appears, it works, and again already it changes, and then we say, oh well, my happiness is gone because things have gone wrong, it has changed again. So I have to struggle to bring things again back to the way I like them, even if we can arrest certain things and they stay. The initial happiness that we are experiencing is also slowly going away, because what was extraordinary in the beginning becomes commonplace. And there, that thirst comes again. I need something in order to be happy. Looking for happiness. Why is everybody looking for happiness? Because deep down we know it is our natural state. It is our birthright to be happy. It is our birthright to live fulfilled. Why? Because it is our natural state. It's what we are. We just have forgotten. We just have been burdened with so many concepts about what should be and should not be, and the way how to function in the world, which is a very disharmonious way, which is not fostering unity but separation, that me struggling against everybody else. And then that hunger is there for fulfillment in one way or another, be it a career, be it in a relationship, be it in a lot of wealth, be it in political power, in one way or another, that thirst is there. I want to get fulfillment, but however much one is struggling, we may fool ourselves for some time, but then if we are just honest with ourselves, we become aware, okay, it's fine, nothing wrong if I can adjust the circumstances to my liking. But even if I'm capable to do so, it is not making me happy. Momentarily, I may feel at peace because the desire is fulfilled, and then it's becoming commonplace. And then that thirst comes again. I need something in order to be happy. What we are looking for is already there in ourselves. If we are aware of that, if we remind ourselves of that and remain conscious, okay, no matter what I'm doing to amuse myself, the happiness I'm experiencing comes out of my own self. Then we can deal with this level, with this world easily. We let the circumstances come, deal with them, and let them go. We may have preferences, there is nothing wrong. Nothing wrong to like certain food more than other food, but nothing wrong liking certain music better than other music. Nothing wrong liking certain company, human company, better than other human company. But we don't have to make our happiness, our well-being dependent on that. If we can adjust the circumstances to our preferences, fine, wonderful. And if we can't, it doesn't matter, because deep down we can be aware I am complete in myself. That fountain of happiness is there, and we can always connect with that, dive into it. If that awareness is there, then the little desires, momentary desires that spring up in our daily life, they are not a problem. We deal with them. Sometimes we can easily fulfill them, and then we fulfill them. Sometimes we cannot fulfill them. So what? It doesn't matter. They come, they go, even if we don't fulfill them, as long as we are not holding on to them and make them unnaturally bigger and bigger and bigger, then they are not the problem. We see a desire spring up, we go for fulfillment if it's easily possible, or we see, okay, it's a desire, it's in the mind, it gives the illusion it was going to make me more happy if I fulfill that, but obviously the circumstances don't let me fulfill, and if we see that, we can just let it go. But if we have been building up and feeding them and making them stronger, then somehow or other, most probably it has to manifest at least to some extent. But if we are attentive, then we become aware, okay, even if we fulfill those desires, it doesn't bring really that sense of satisfaction, that sense of fulfillment, because it's still dependent on a structure, and that structure is going to change again, change all the time. This is simply the law of the material expression. It's never stands still. It's changing all the time, all the time, all the time. The mind, the thoughts, they are changing all the time. One person may feel if they're doing this, they will become very happy. Another person may feel about the same thing. Oh, God, I have to do that thing. It pisses me off. I don't like it. It's not the thing in itself that brings that happiness. It's our attitude, and that attitude also is changing. If we learn to let go, we don't have to become ascetics. If one wants to become an ascetic, yes, then that's the right thing to do. But it's not that everybody has to force themselves to become an ascetic. They can live their life in the world, fulfill the little desires when they come, or let them pass, but we can still be aware my happiness comes out of myself. It's not dependent on the circumstances. Whether I'm externally pleased or not is dependent, but that superficial sense of being pleased is not fulfilling that yearning, that hunger for happiness. That hunger comes simply out of the fact that we are always completely happy. We are always fulfilled in our true natural state. And somehow everybody is yearning to come back to that, even if they, after that, screw up and try to find it in all kinds of ways and get disappointed again and again. But the basic urge there is to come home. That's what we have to do. Come home, become again aware of something that we simply have forgotten, but it's still there. Okay, I'm asking again you. Is there anyone who would like to come in and say something? You're welcome to do so. Hello, Rita.
Hello. I dare to come in, although I don't know exactly how to express what I want, or
Well, let's try together.
Yeah. Um, my mother died last year, and so we brothers and sisters, we have to sit together, and one sister we didn't have much contact. And we don't argue with each other, but just sitting together and organizing what has to be organized after the death of my mother makes that it just plops out her hatred against me. And that she, for example, says, I don't have a relationship with you. I don't want to exchange any feelings. But I didn't exchange feelings. I avoided it because it doesn't work. And then I realized this makes now just an email from her where she just one word in the email makes me getting very, I get sometimes also very, very angry. And I realize that what she has in herself, I have in myself. And there's this strong force to answer like she is doing, but I managed not to do so.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
And I really kind of want to regulate it in myself. And it helped me sometimes to go into the forest and to take a branch and to give this energy in there. But it kind of maybe as you talked with Floyd earlier, it kind of all the the, the tasks I had to deal with it, they are kind of hidden. And I would like, I just this morning I sat in the chapel and let it come and want to feel it and kind of transform it by just letting it come, but it doesn't, it's kind of hiding, or it gets subtler, or I don't know, or subtler, I don't know, or like I, yeah, maybe. So maybe sometimes I wonder whether I want to change too much with these feelings. Maybe I just accept that they are there and come and go. And maybe is my wish beyond is that I would kind of transform them forever. Yeah, that I can be peaceful, how however she reacts, but I can't, and I can't. Yeah. I realized that was years ago when I had this peace when I at Christmas I felt I was so peaceful. I realized my mother could have said whatever she wants. It would not disturb me. And I know that this peace is there. What you always say: connect, please relax. That's this peace. But in these moments, the other forces are stronger, and ooh. And now talking about it, I realize that there's a huge sadness behind it.
Yes.
Mm.
Right. I mean, then you have sometimes the idea you should not feel like this. You, as a spiritual being, should not feel like this.
Yeah, no, I managed to accept that I have these feelings, but they are so strong and so I think and think and think, and I talk with her in inwards, and I tell her all bad things what I argue with her in myself, and this is so strong, and I just can't get yeah, I can't get.
If that situation happens, sorry.
Yeah, I can't get peaceful.
If that is happening, then there are always two that support it. You have these kind of feelings and you struggle with them, but you send them also to the other side. And
you
then also to her.
Yes, to her. Yes, right.
Energetically, it
energetically,
reaches her.
Yeah.
And she has her thing going on, and that reaches you energetically.
Yes.
And so there is that circle supported from both sides, that it goes to and fro, and then you keep on arguing in your head. And there you cannot expect that you change other people, your sister, your brother, anybody. But you can learn to deal with the situation in a different way. That, okay, that struggle is there, that circle is there, but if I see that circle, instead of feeding it, I can learn to step a step out and just observe, okay, it's doing all these things in the body, it's doing all these things energetically and invariably, that gives rise to the whole mental work. And if I learn to step back and observe this, then already you stop feeding it at that moment. And if on top of that you learn to relax, to redirect the attention, then suddenly you are not more entertaining that circle. And invariably it will calm down also by her, from her side, because you are not more giving that energy to sustain it. It's not a thing about morality again, as we have talked with Floyd. It has nothing to do with morality, how you should be. It's simply that you learn to deal with your life force in a more constructive way than throw it into an endless circle of going round and round and round the same thing and basically puffing it out into space. That you learn to see, okay, accept the situation is there. There is that to and fro, and there is that aggression that comes, and I feel like giving the aggression back in the same way, using the same language. But then, instead of doing that, you can also just see that urge in yourself, that you have that also in yourself, and see when you are doing that, when you are aware of that, see what it is doing to your experience right now, how your body is reacting, what is happening physically when these emotions are there, what is happening energetically, and learn to relax on that level. And already the mind will start to calm down and produce less ideas like this. We don't get around of learning to detach on that level, to see instead of being in the midst of it, caught up in it, to see it, to observe in one way or another. How we are doing it, it doesn't matter, but in one way or another, that we are capable of observing instead of justifying and feeding, and I'm right and they are wrong and I have the full right to be like this. But they are behaving like this, so I have the full right to behave like that. It has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with whether I'm right or not right, whether they are wrong or not wrong. It has to do that I learn to be at peace. That I learn not to get sucked into that endless circle again and again and again. And so put all the thing away about whether I have the right to be like this or not, but let me see what's really going on subtly, energetically, and learn to relax that. And then even very strong habits gradually can be eliminated, that we can let them go. It may even happen that eventually then your sister also stops acting like this and feeling like this and becomes more open to have a nice communication, a nice connection. But even if it doesn't happen, your job is that you detach from that in such a way and observe and learn to relax, learn to let go, that your inner peace is not being disturbed by it. And the more you do that, the more it's also affecting your sister.
Yeah, I just realized how strong these forces can be.
Yes, out of habit. The habits, they are powerful. And if you have a lifelong habit, they have their own momentum. And even if you decide, I'm not going to react, I'm not going to feel like this, then the situation comes and puff, the reaction comes out of habit. But even if the reaction comes, then don't beat yourself up that it is there again. But okay, it's there, so then invite it rather. Okay, let the feelings come instead of trying to push them away. But observe, see what it is doing, see what the anger is doing in the body, see what it is doing in energetically. And when you see that, you have the chance to start to relax instead of feeding it, instead of sustaining it, instead of justifying it with the arguments that after all, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. They are wrong. How can they dare to behave like this?
I realized that I'm just doing the same like she does. The only difference is she does it outwards, loud, and I do it
right
in my mind. In my mind. I mean, yeah, it helps. Step back, step back, step back, step back.
And even if those thoughts come, then for a moment, do it consciously and tell her all that you want to tell her. But at the same time, stop taking it so serious and observe what is really happening. And then suddenly it becomes somewhat funny.
Yeah.
Then you don't need to take it so serious and you can start to relax and never mind whether this is going to change how she feels about you and acts against you ever. At least it gives also her a chance, but for you, you can learn not to be a victim of the situation.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was learning to clean out my stuff and starting to have a bad conscience about bad feelings I had and still somehow harbor about people in my life, people that have been, to still keep them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. To still keep those feelings about people who, some of them close and some of them that have simply been on the periphery, but still that there is some certain amount of tension and aggression there. And sometimes I consciously allowed myself, okay, now let it come out and tell them and fully without taking any, without any conditioning, and I shouldn't talk like this, I shouldn't think like this, but let it come out. But then if you do that, you cannot really take yourself serious very long. And then then it's like you let go, and then you can, when they still come back, you can observe them and start to relax, and eventually they lose their power. You stop being a victim of a situation. But then still unpleasant feelings will come, unpleasant situations will happen. But and even if in the moment you may react, but after that, when you are again alone, you see, there is their old mechanism that I keep it, I maintain it, it comes, I send it, it comes, I send it. But then you learn not to take that so serious anymore, but step out of it. Okay, what does it matter? Who feels what about myself? The happiness, the fulfillment comes out of me, and not whether the other appreciate me or not.
Yeah. That's what I sometimes do. I go to the forest and take a branch and let all the words come.
Mm-hmm.
But this time there was no branch who was strong enough. They all broke. And then finally, I never experienced this in mid of the forest. A sheep, a lost sheep, a small lost sheep came, and it touched me so. It was so lost, and then, but I couldn't get it. It went away again, and I thought, this is my lost sheep, sheep which I was meeting.
Right, right.
Yeah,
That beauty is always there to manifest and express itself in one way or another, but it comes, it's there. It's not something that we have lost, we just have forgotten and covered it up. But if we give it a chance, somehow or other, it comes up, and we can learn to be open to that, and then all those things that have appeared to be so important suddenly are not more so important. And if we have that attitude also, if we meet people with whom we have a story, a history of not so friendly encounters, if then you don't bring the usual attitude in it, then the tendency is that they also have more and more let it go.
Thank you very much, Werner.
You're welcome. Hari Om. Hari
Hari Om.
Om. You also aggressive now with your other male fellow, huh? It's all a play, this world. It's a magic show. We have come into this matrix with the intention to learn, to grow, to outgrow this level. And in the confrontations that we are getting, we're getting at the same time opportunities. Opportunities not insisting on the me personality and my right and what is just and but that we learn to use the forces that we encounter to become more self-aware, to use that intensity to open up, to grow, to expand, and not to hold on to that contracted consciousness. We have comforted. The whole life story is a continuous series of that we meet situations. Some are easy, some are difficult. We meet situations, and all the situations we can learn to use them, that we become more self-aware instead of getting identified with the role that we are playing it, and increasing that sense of being separate. The more we use the situations, pleasant, unpleasant, confrontational, the more we are capable of using the situations to drive the attention deeper in our own resources, the more you're fulfilling the purpose of why we have come into this crazy world, why we are playing this game of being human. It's not a cosmic accident. We came here on purpose to learn, to grow, to outgrow, to expand. I wish you all well. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.